Ghana Education Service is going after its members who have defaulted in the payment of their rent. A Finance Ministry circular in May 2006 directed all occupants of government bungalows to pay 10% of their basic salary as rent. But it has emerged that over the years, this directive has not been either implemented or complied with fully. The matter is up again, and the Regional Education Directorate is demanding full implementation of this directive, including the retrieval of arrears since 2006. Let me bring you details of a statement issued by the Western Regional Directorate of the Ghana Education Service. It says, in line with efforts to streamline the anomalies with regards to the payment of rent for occupying school or government bungalows, I wish to draw your attention to the Ministry of Finance circular on the 15th of May 2006, which requires that occupants of government bungalows are expected to pay 10% of their basic salary as rent. It continues by saying, I therefore write to inform you that with effect from 1st March 2022, all teachers, staff occupying school or government bungalow are to pay 10% of their basic salary. You are also to ensure all arrears owed are collected to avoid audit issues. I hope you will comply and act accordingly. So this is a statement that was written by the Western Regional Director of Education to the district directors as well as all heads of second cycle institutions in the region. And this is what has prompted the agitations by the various teacher unions. We'll be hearing from some of them shortly. But my colleague, Kofi AJ, joins me in the studio with more on this. And we'll bring you details. Well, Kofi, you have been looking at the Auditor General's report on this rent issue. What have you discovered?
All right. So, NS, if you look at outstanding, payment in terms of rent, the Ministry of Finance circular, of which was issued on 15th month in 2020, requires that occupants of government, occupants of government bungalows, flats, quarters are to pay 10%, as basic salary per month. And this is according to the Ministry of Finance. And that's what you just said. And if you look at the health sector, 324 government workers from 11 institutions defaulted in the payment of rents between January 2016 and December 2019. This is according to the Auditor General's report, resulting in an outstanding rent of 472,223, and 16 pesos.
Okay.
Of the,
so this is just for the health sector, exactly. 324.
Yeah. So let's do a breakdown of the health sector. So if you look at the institution, so this column is for the institution, and then we have the number of staffs and then the amount that that sector is owing. So if you look at Achimota Hospital, we have number of staff being 10, and they owe as high as more than 42,000 Ghana cedis. 10 staff owing 42,000 Ghana cedis. Accra Psychiatric Hospital 30. They owe more than 4,000 Ghana cedis. Shai Osudoku, we also have Shai Osudoku. Cape Coast Teaching Hospital, and then we have Cape Coast Metropolitan Hospital. Okay,
so for Cape Coast, you see 64 then. I think that's the highest so far in this
Cape Coast, the highest,
list you see here.
Yeah, followed closely by, Cape Coast, the highest, Teaching Hospital, the highest, and then the Metropolitan Hospital following. And we also have Tetekwashi Memorial Hospital in the eastern region, also being the second in this. So if you sum the number of staff, we have about 324. 324 staff.
And the total amount?
The total amount is about 472.
Okay, but Kofi, I see something here. Even though we have 64 being the highest number of members who are in owing as far as the rent is concerned, in terms of the amounts, you're looking at the highest being the 205,374, and that is from the Seshui, we also government hospital.
And it's from just
44 of the staff
members. So it means that there's some sort of variation in terms of the amount that...
And perhaps the period as well in contention.
Exactly. So let's look at the Ghana Education Service outstanding rents, the breakdown. And so we've done for the Ministry of Health. Now let's do Ghana Education Service. So we have Education Services, that's the headquarters, 9 tenants. And then between 2014 and 2018, they owe as high as 78,371 Ghana cedis.
Okay.
And then Ghana Education Service, Eastern Region Education Office, 5 tenants owing 18,248. And now you see that this period, the period has changed.
Yeah.
This was from 2014 to 2018, but this time around it's
this November 2016 to June 2019.
And the amount is 18,248 Ghana cedis. So we also have Education Service, the District Office of
Donkokrom
being 48 tenants, and that gives you a sum of 14,413 Ghana cedis. So if you should add this to what we had earlier, that's close to 600,000 Ghana cedis. And if you also add the number of tenants to the earlier 342, we are hovering around 383 tenants.
Almost 400, public sector workers just from the Ghana Education Service and the Health Service that are owing, government. Thank you, Kofi, for bringing us those details there. But let's do some more. The teacher unions have been reacting. Some of them are not happy with this development. Let's hear from Angel Kabonu, who is president of NAGRAT.
There are teachers holding different responsibilities in the Ghana Education Service, find themselves in bungalows. They'll be affected by it because this is a general public service situation. And the letter the regional director referred to was a directive that came from the Ministry of Finance. But let me tell you how this works. That all public servants who are in government bungalows are supposed to pay rent to government. However, government itself, all over the years, have come up with exemptions to certain people or certain officials in government bungalows. So certain officials who perform certain duties take the accommodation as part of their condition or conditions of service. So they are exempted.
So that's Angel Kabonu. He's president of NAGRAT. One other institution that came up in this Auditor General's report is the Ghana Health Service, as illustrated there earlier. Let's go to Zoom now and speak to Perpetual Ofori Ampofo, who is president of the Ghana Registered Midwives and Nurses Association. Thank you very much, madam, for your time here on Joy News Prime. You fundamentally have an objection to the policy on rent being paid by your members. What are your reasons?
The reasons are that our members stay in these bungalows to provide services to various institutions. In principle, we are not against the policy of paying 10% of one's salary as rent. The issue is that there are varied types of accommodation, and it is unfair to ask people to pay the same 10% of their salaries, with people living in 2-bedroom, 1-story apartments, others living in 1-bedroom, self-contained apartments, others living in what we call babysitters. There's just one room, shared facilities of toilets, bathroom with other colleagues, and it's the same 10%. So these inequities in the system are what have always caused agitations in the past. And I'm not surprised that there are some institutions with staff that have some money to be paid. But to say that people have to pay arrears from as far back as 2006 cannot happen, because if through the fault, it's not their fault in any way for they having not paid if it was supposed to be deducted from source. But we need to sit down with our stakeholders and discuss this matter as workers, as employers, and as other stakeholders to find a lasting solution to this. Because when people live in accommodations that are provided by the employer or by government, it also facilitates the work in so many ways. In our case as nurses and midwives, those who live in government bungalows on the premise of the health institution or the hospital are able to come on afternoon duties, night duties, and act more on call-ins. They are called at any time to come and provide service because they are living on the premises of the hospital. And that gives the opportunity for their colleagues who also live very far away to be able to run more of morning duties so that and also safeguard their own protection, especially.
So that is very clear. I think these are the benefits that accrue to you as far as these systems are concerned. But when you say that it will not happen, you are essentially saying what? That you will not pay?
I'm saying that we need to sit with authorities on this matter, because going back as far as 2006, to be frank with you, in 2006, we didn't have any collective agreement with our employers. And some of these things were not even explained to employees who took accommodation in some of these bungalows. And to be frank with you, the issue, when you go down, our members, as it were, are not really against the payment of this 10%, which is on monthly basis. But like I said, the unfairness in terms of the type of accommodation and the amounts of monies that people are paying is the headache that we are having.
Very well.
So are they saying that if people have to pay arrears as far back as 2006, that will be unfair? We need to sit down with the Auditor General and whoever it is to discuss these matters, especially with so that we know exactly what it is that our members would have to face in this this current report.
Well, Madam, hold on for me. We're joined by a lawyer. He will provide some perspective to this. Lawyer Charles Bawajia joins us via Zoom for some more on this development. First of all, you had her talk about the fact that it is not their fault that this was not deducted. But does the failure of government to deduct a source absolve the teachers of the responsibility of paying, especially within the period of defaults that we're talking about? You'd have to unmute your Zoom so we can hear you.
Yes, I think that the inability or negligence, as it may appear, on the part of government to deduct the rent payable at source is not a barrier to government claiming the rent now.
Okay.
Fundamentally, if you owe rent, you have to pay. What it appears to me to be the issue is that it would appear that this rent issue was not negotiated between government, which is the employer, and then the workers represented by their respective unions or associations. And that is key. This is because if you look closely at Section 9 of the Labour Act, the employer has a duty, and in this case, government, to pay all the agreed remuneration of a worker without any deduction, except, and this is where the point is, deduction required by law or agreed between the employer and the employee. And when we talk about the reduction permitted by law, you are talking about taxes, you are talking about SNIT contribution. Those are statutory deductions permitted by law. Apart from that, any other deduction that the employer wants to make on the worker's remuneration ought to be agreed upon between the employer and the employee. It doesn't appear to me that in imposing a percentage of 10% on this remuneration of public service workers, there was some negotiation on that. And that is where the problem is. Okay. So moving forward, I think that government needs to engage the worker unions, the associations, to have a discussion and agree on the way forward as to how to deal with it. So it is not so much about the duty to pay rent, because of course, if you want to occupy a government accommodation, you need to pay rent for it. And Perpetual was enumerating to you some of the benefits of workers occupying government accommodation. And I think we need to discuss this, sit around the table, negotiate it, agree on the percentage, and agree on the terms of payment. And I'm sure it.
Because you say there was no agreement specifically between government and the workers, would that also constitute grounds not to pay, especially for those who have allegedly defaulted in the payment, for instance?
Well, for those who have allegedly defaulted, you see, we have what we call statutory limitations. It appears to me, reading the letter that came, that the imposition was done somewhere in 2006. The statutory limitation is such that no claims can be made more than 6 years. So anything more than 6 years may not be claimed. But otherwise, once you have lived in it and there was an agreed rate, then they ought to pay the rent. If there was no agreement, it will be a subject matter of evidence for which an adjudicatory body may have to look at, or if the parties are able to sit around the table and find an amicable solution to it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bauja, for your time. Let me take your final words from you, Madam Ampofo. Following this legal perspective, what do you intend to do about it? Are you going to initiate some meeting with the employers to discuss this?
To be frank with you, at this moment in time, it's not about us initiating any discussions with the employer. We expect the employer to invite us to sit down to discuss these matters, because the data shows specifically those institutions with the number of health staff who have defaulted over the years. And I'm not too sure. This data also gives the breakdown of the number of doctors, the number of nurses or other health professionals. So it is about the joint health sector unions, and it's about time the employer invites us to sit down and discuss these matters. That's how I see it.
Thank you very much. That's Perpetual Ampofo. She is president of the Association of Registered Nurses and Midwives. Now,